Jesus Christ and Mary Immaculate, welcome to this fifth Sunday in Ordinary Time. We're going to read from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. Today's Gospel presents to us a powerful moment in the life of St. Peter, a real moment of encounter, trust, and transformation. It begins with Jesus standing by the lake of Gennesaret, preaching to the crowds. Notice, Jesus preaches to both the crowds and to the individual person. He feels comfortable in both situations. But notice that where he chooses to teach from a boat, specifically from the boat of Simon, who is not yet called Peter, from Simon. And at first, Jesus addresses the crowd, the big crowd, numerous people. His words are for everyone, and everyone is invited to the table of his word. But then something changes. He shifts his focus to the crowds, or from the crowds to one person, to Simon. And he tells him, put out into the deep water and lower your nets for a catch. Meaning go down deeper, where it's darker, where it's scarier, where it's more difficult to see. Go down there for a catch. Simon's response is honest. Master, we have worked hard all night and have caught nothing. He knows that fish don't come out in the day. He knows that fish come out when it's a little dark. But Jesus wants him to go deeper in the darkness, deeper where it's unsure, deeper where it's scarier. And Peter says, I'm exhausted, frustrated. Peter knows fishing. He's a fisherman. It's his trade. It's his livelihood. He knows better than Jesus, who's the son of a carpenter, when it's the right time to go fishing. And after a long night of failure, he sees no reason why anything would change now. Yet in the midst of his exhaustion, he adds one crucial phrase. But at your word, I will lower the nets. Think about it. This is Simon, not Peter yet. But at your word, I will lower the nets. Already, he has this trust in Jesus. The little but at your word, this little but changes everything. Simon is making a shift from relying on his own strength and on his own knowledge, on his own experience, to trusting the strength, the knowledge, and the experience of Jesus. And that is when the miracle happens. The nets fill with fish, so many that they begin to break. The boats nearly sink from the weight of the catch, and Simon is overwhelmed. He falls to his knees and he says, Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man. It's interesting the reaction of Simon, who, upon seeing the generosity of God, the blessings of God in his life, he thinks that the right thing to do is to get away from that blessing, to get away from that generosity, as if he doesn't deserve it. Why does he say this? Because at the moment he realizes who Jesus is. He realizes that in the presence of Christ, his own limitations, his own weaknesses are laid bare, that everyone can see them. Yet Jesus did not reject Simon. Instead, he calls him to be and to do something greater. And he says, do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching people. This is an interesting catch. This is an interesting mission. This moment is not just about a miraculous catch of fish. It is about Simon's transformation. Up till now, he has fished for a living, catching creatures that when you pull them out of the water, they die. They belong in the sea. They belong in the water. They belong in the darkness. They belong down there. You pull them out, they die. Jesus now calls him to bring people to life, to bring people out of the habitat that is not life-giving to them, to bring people out of a place where they don't belong, where they can't breathe. And think about how many of our brothers and sisters find themselves in situations where it's even difficult to breathe, where they can't see where their next meal has come from. They can't see where they're going to find housing. They can't see where they're going to find a job. They can't see when things are going to get better, where things are dark for them, and yet they can't breathe. They're choking. We're not meant to live there. And Jesus calls him now to bring people from those atmospheres, from those places, into life. And notice Simon is no longer just a fisherman. He becomes a fisher of men. But this only happens after he is willing to step beyond his exhaustion, beyond his frustration, beyond his experience. And so are we called to do the same, to go beyond our exhaustion, to go beyond our anxieties, to go beyond our frustrations, and to go beyond what we think we know. God has a whole world, a whole universe of surprises waiting for us. And only when he lets go and he lets go of control does he experience the abundance that Jesus brings. What about us? How many times in our lives have we felt like Simon? We work hard, we do everything, we do everything that we know how to do, and yet sometimes it feels like our efforts lead to nothing. We get discouraged and we want to quit. We wonder whether we are really making a difference. But Jesus comes into our boats, and he comes into our lives, and he says to us, put out into the deep water. He invites us to trust him, not just when things make sense, not just when we feel strong, but especially when we're tired, exhausted, and we just give up, when we come back home empty-handed. And it's precisely for those moments when we surrender and we trust that his great works begin to happen in our lives, that he begins his greatest miracles in our lives. Jesus calls us to do something deeper. He does not want us to stay where we are comfortable. He invites us to leave behind fear, self-doubts, and the limits that we place on ourselves. Peter could have said, nope, I'm done, I tried it, I'm going home. But instead, he took a step in faith. And that step changed his life forever. So today, Jesus is asking us the same thing. Are you willing to trust? Are you willing to let go? Are you willing to step into the deep, even when you feel like giving up? If we do, we will discover, just as Peter did, that with Christ, there is always more than we could ever imagine. More abundance, more blessing, more care, more compassion, more mercy. And our job is not to step away from it, but to get closer and to accept it. God bless you.